We're here for the weekly Montana Volleyball press conference with head coach Allison Lawrence. Team returning home this week after being away for 19 days it'll be. You've won 3 straight at home, though. How exciting is it to get back inside of Dahlberg Arena, play with your fans, and try to buck this streak?
Yeah, it's great to be back. I hadn't counted the days, but it did feel like about that long. So it'll be great to be back, and I think, like you said, we're playing well at home, and I think just needing a big response. So no better place to do that than here with all our fans, and I think we're eager to just get into a new week.
Can you just walk us through the Montana State game and just kind of seeing them again? And you're about to start seeing teams for the second time in conference play. Just what was it like kind of seeing them again, and just what did you notice, how your team responded to that, and maybe some of the adversities too?
Yeah, no, I mean, it's always the interesting part of conference once you start repeating opponents, and really you feel like you have a good scout and some things worked in the first go around, and then there's adjustments made on both sides. And I think, MSU played really well. I think Kira Thompson played exceptionally well and I just think was a great emotional leader for them, and I think they really put pressure on the parts of our game that when they break down made us feel pretty one-dimensional and kind of got inconsistent. So, but yeah, it's a great match environment. That part was awesome. It's a fun arena to play in. It's just, it got the better of us for sure, and I think they outplayed us and seemed like they definitely had a mental edge, which I think was a little bit of the frustrating part, because we felt we really had that when we were home here. So to feel like we carried that into that match, and then kind of after the first set and a half get kind of rattled and tight, I think a little bit was tough. But I think that's what the rivalry does, and it's all instructive, and we got to use it for good. So, going into NAU, it was so tight in Flagstaff. They've been using some different lineups, and so it'll be interesting to see what they've got here and how they're preparing against us, and then, we'll be ready.
In the past, when you've noticed your team kind of see teams twice,
Mm-hmm.
like what I guess for you was like the biggest step for success in the second time if a team beat you the first time, like you're going to see with these two teams this week?
Yeah, I think we look back at the match and definitely want to tighten up some breakdowns from the previous time. But honestly, it's just looking at their last, 3 to 5 matches and seeing what their tendencies are now. I think October's a crazy month, and lots of things happen nationally and locally, and you just see changes and you see trends and patterns. And then I think it's all this time of year, it's all about just mental and emotional resiliency. So can we bounce back and be in a place where we're really loose, playing like ourselves? And I think we, against MSU, there were sets where we're just not getting enough kills. So if we're getting enough kills, no matter who's on the other side of the net, then good things will happen.
These two teams, just as you get ready to see them again, just what kind of stood out about them the first go around, and just excited to see them again here at home?
Yeah, I think, NAU is very scrappy, so they get a lot of balls back and play really good defense. And I think in that match, I'm trying to remember, but it was pretty even digs-wise and blocks-wise. I could feel like statistically a very even match, and so you go into this match for sure knowing there's going to be a lot of long rallies. And just a lot of grittiness on both sides. So I'm excited for that kind of match, and I feel like it's a good test of where we're at emotionally for sure. And then UNC, just offensively, is always firing on all cylinders. They've got great middles. Their setter distributes well and is super physical. So I think that piece is a good test too of our defensive structure, and just seeing how far we've come defensively, since the last time we saw them. So those are, I think, big themes for us this week.
Even though you didn't finish playing Montana State twice early in the season,
Mm-hmm.
You still were able to kind of get through that environment before you had to reface teams that had beaten you guys on the road. Do you think that away game against Montana kind of preps you to face these teams that got the better of you in their home stadium and finally get to show them, show your team out at the in the home venue?
Yeah, no, I think so. I think there's some extra confidence that comes at home and extra rhythm maybe, and I think playing in that environment just always, brings out sides of you, and always produces good things. I think we learned really good things on Friday, and and puts you in a gear that you need to be in down the home stretch of conference for sure. And, ultimately we're trying to position ourselves in and for the conference tournament where we're going to be the away team, either the neutral or away team. And so being comfortable in an environment that isn't here is really important. So we've got to take that from Friday, find our rhythm home, and then be able to keep reproducing that as we go through the end of season. And
of course, there are a lot of, players who get a lot of time, a lot of reps. I guess I wanted to ask you about some of the younger players and just how they've been fitting in. I mean, we could talk about Maddie Kramer, but also like Maddie Piles and just players who kind of have been getting in. I guess, how have you seen some of the younger core develop, especially with such a strong group of seniors and even people who still have that next year but are kind of vets on this team right now?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I think the younger players have been developing really well. Maddie Kramer in particular, she went from a smaller role last year to as big a role as you can have this year. So to see her grow in real time in matches has been really wonderful. And I think we've just seen a lot since the first time we played NAU UNC. We've seen a lot of growth in her ball control and in her all-around play and just in her presence on the court. So that's big time. Maddie Piles, as you mentioned, I think has been really effective. We've used her as a serving sub for our middles. We've used her as a DS. We've used her on the pin and the right. And so I think she's just a utility player that gives us some options and is just training so hard and waiting for her opportunities to make an impact. And I think when she gets those, she does a great job.
Here's my last question for you is when you face, especially with NAU and UNC, but also your next two home matchups after that, Sac State and Portland State. Last year you had some big upsets, especially Portland State at home, I guess. Like when you have these teams, do you when you know you're going to face them on the road earlier in the season, do you kind of game plan a little bit differently, knowing the things you did right last year? I know there's roster turnover, of course, but you have these teams that you're able to upset, you have good games against, and even teams like Northern Colorado who win the conference. Like, I guess, how do you kind of prep for those big matchups really early on in the season, even if you know you might not get those chances late in the season to play them at home, and kind of give them the work at home instead of having to go on the road early?
Yeah. I mean, I think this time of year, it's really all about timing, more so, I think, in your question. So I think this time of year, we're just looking at teams' trajectories, teams, with injuries, with changes, with all those things, just what tactically we can do to put stressors on certain areas of their game. And so you learn that for the first time when you play them, but as we watch film, we've watched them, dozens of times. And so I think then the picture becomes clearer as to what their body of work is, who they are as a team, and then you see how those things match up with your own strengths, and you know yourself better. So our goal is to just be consistently in our gear and hitting our scout. But yeah, you always hope at home that you have the mental edge for sure.
One more. Carly Anderson, now over 3,400 career assists. She will likely pass Ashley this weekend, who was obviously here when you got here. Mm-hmm. How important is that role, and how nice has it been to have somebody who has taken it over like Carly has over these last several years now?
Yeah, I mean, that role is huge. I think any setter, especially a setter like Ashley and Carly, who are in a 5-1 where we don't have two setters on the court. I think the style of our offense reflects their style as players in amazing ways, and there's little ways that their leadership and their personality kind of take over and show themselves. And so I think it's been amazing that Carly's been able to, come in as a freshman and take on that role. That 5-1 setter role is really difficult, and so to do those things and lead and execute in the ways that she has is a testament to her strength and her athleticism. And I think just as we've had a roster that's really, over the last 8 years, and COVID and kind of all the things, the tumultuous things that have happened in athletics since 2020, I think she's been a mainstay and been something that's really steadied us out and been something consistent that we rely on, so that as hitters have matured in our system, she's a piece that's allowed for a lot of growth in her teammates. So yeah, can't say enough good things.
Just one more kind of general question. Just November's going to be here in 2 days, and it's kind of the home stretch now. So just how would you kind of evaluate big picture where the program's at and maybe some of the key points going forward here as the conference tournament approaches?
Yeah, big picture. Gosh, I mean, I think great things. I think we're in a healthy, stressful place. I think the stressful piece is like managing expectations and managing kind of repeating a year that we had last year. So dealing with how do we repeat success? How do we do that with a very different schedule, preseason and in conference? And how do we make meaning of this and what our obstacles have been this year and who we are and how do we keep continuing to grow and evolve into a contending team? So I think we're a much stronger team this year than we were last year, and yet we've had setbacks that we didn't have last year. And so what meaning are we making of that? And also, how are we just moving on and saying, yep, we're one day at a time? So I think big picture is position ourselves in the tournament, make a run in the tournament, and do something in postseason that we haven't done since 2014 or 2015 or whatever. So it's all about growth, it's all about evolution, and it's all about resiliency. If we're doing those three things at the end of the day, like, outcome is outcome. But those are the things I care about.
Do we have a favorite Halloween candy?
Ooh. Well, it's not really Halloween candy, but I love Twix, and I love those
Okay, that works. Yeah.
Rice Krispie balls that people make. Do you know what I mean? Or it doesn't matter the shape, but I just love the homemade Rice Krispie treat.
Okay.
So that's what I want.
Is there an overrated one?
Anything with like just gobs of coconut probably is overrated.
Oh, my favorite is Almond Joy.
Ew, see, no, I'm not like, I'll eat it if I have to. But that's a no for me. Thanks, Sean. You can see that getting cut up, just balls of Rice Krispies.